Last lecture we talked about this control condition, right? To be responsible for an action or anything else, we think you have to be in control of it. You have to have control over the things you are held responsible for. So this lecture I want to talk about what moral luck is and why it challenges the control condition. So here's some very basic cases of moral luck. Um, you know, two people leave the bar at the same time. They're both drunk, We can even imagine that they're both equally drunk. They drive home, they shouldn't do this. One kills a person in a wreck. He has bad luck, let's say, a car gets in front of him or a person wanders in front of him, the other person makes it home fine, right? Now look, we would all think that the person who kills someone has done something terrible. And the person who drives home drunk and gets home safely, well, he's done something bad. But it's not as bad as the guy who kills somebody, right? It's something bad. He should probably feel guilty about it. He shouldn't do it again. It's not the same as the person who actually killed someone, right? Well, but what's weird about that? What's weird about that is that the two people have actually, in a very real sense, done the same thing. The same bad thing. They both drove home after drinking too much. What they've done is exactly the same, driving after drinking too much, but one person had the good luck to get home safely without injuring anyone. One person had the bad luck to kill somebody, right? Now notice here too, think about how this challenges the control principle, right? What are these guys both in control of? They're in control of whether they drive home drunk. They both made the bad choice to do that, right? But a lot of ways, you could imagine the one guy killing someone, you know, he's not in control of that, right? Just somebody happens to be in the road. He has made this decision, drive home drunk. That's in his control. That's a bad thing. But the guy who makes it home safely made exactly the same decision. He just got lucky, right? So, it seems that we are treating these cases differently because of something that wasn't in the control of the one driver, right? Hitting somebody. If we really believed the control condition, you might say, we would have to treat these cases the same because what these people are in control of, driving drunk, they made the same decision. Other similar cases, right? Imagine someone leaves the gas on in their apartment, leaves the stove on or something, and they think about it, they're leaving, they're 10 minutes down the block, and they think, oh my god, I left the gas on, I need to go back. They go back, they open the windows, everything's fine, right? Another person has the same thought. They turn around, but when they're like 2 minutes away, there's a spark, there's an explosion, the building catches fire, people are hurt or killed, right? What the people have done is exactly the same. They left the gas on. They both went back to try to fix it. Just the one guy has the good luck to be able to fix it. The other person doesn't. And look, they've both done something a bit careless, right? But it would be really, really weird if the first guy, years later, said to himself, oh my goodness, I'll never forget that day. I'll feel guilty to my dying day. I left the gas on and someone could have been injured or killed. We would say to this person, it's like, yeah, don't leave the gas on, that's bad. But, nobody was hurt. don't worry about it, right? If the second person caused an explosion to fire that killed someone or severely injured someone, if they said, well, I'll feel guilty about that forever, if they were a friend, we might try to comfort them, but we wouldn't in the same way think, okay, that's neurotic, you're beating yourself up too much. A lot of us would say that's appropriate, right? I'm going to guess that a lot of you have done things that could have had fatal consequences for others, right? And have just gotten lucky that they didn't. I have left stove eyes on when I shouldn't. I could have started fires. I could have done that, right? I didn't. Take another case, right? You're driving and you look down to fiddle with the radio. I've certainly done that. But, if you think about it, this is not a thing you should do. Don't look down to fiddle with the radio when you're moving, especially on busy streets. Wait till you get to a stop sign or whatever. Especially don't text if you're driving. But look, we've probably fiddled with the radio. A lot of us have probably texted, and we've been okay, right? But, you might be fiddling with the radio and someone steps out in front of you and you kill them, right? Or another car pulls out, you don't see them, and you smash into them and someone is killed, right? In those cases, and there are cases of people doing this, if you do read the Gregory article, she gives a few good examples. What the person is in control of, fiddling with their radio, texting, looking away, is something we've all done, right? But we think simply because they have bad luck, they actually hit someone, they injure or kill somebody, they are responsible for something we're not. If you run over a pedestrian while you're fiddling with your radio, it would make sense to feel guilty about that for years. It would maybe even make sense to charge somebody who did that with a crime and send them to jail for a while, right? We wouldn't think that we should feel guilty just because we were fiddling with the radio and could have killed somebody, though, even though we've done the same thing as this other unlucky person. And it would be especially bizarre to say, oh, because you could have killed someone fiddling with your radio, we should send you to jail just the same as we have the person who did kill somebody, right? But again, think of the control principle. What we are in control of, fiddling with our radio, looking away from the road, is exactly the same as the case of the person who did that and got unlucky. I'm from a rural area. I'm from way out in the country. I grew up there. People target practice a lot. People shoot a lot. So this is one that occurs to me. If someone carelessly fires a gun, you're supposed to always have something behind it that'll stop the bullet. If you're target practicing, put it all up against a hill. But people do this carelessly. It happens in the country carelessly all the time. Someone comes home and finds that a bullet went through their window or hit their house, right? If you do this carelessly and no one dies, the bullet doesn't hit anything, that's bad, you shouldn't do it, but that's different than if you do it carelessly and break someone's window or damage their home, right? That itself is different than if you do it carelessly and kill someone. But in the three cases, what the person is in control of, carelessly firing a gun, is the same. It's just the consequences, which they don't have control over once that bullet leaves the gun, that differ. We can even push this further. Here are some slightly different cases of moral luck. A truck driver who's doing nothing wrong, whose truck is in good working order, whose brakes are fine, who's paying attention to the road, who's well rested, who has a child just run out in front of him and hit the kid, right? Let's imagine he's not speeding, he is not doing anything wrong. Now, we certainly wouldn't want to punish this guy, right? If he's not responsible, it would be wrong to punish him. None of us would blame him. But at the same time, I think most of us would think that it's not inappropriate for him to feel a certain kind of guilt. It's not neurotic or irrational for him to feel guilt or even shame in a way that someone who, you know, left the gas on and didn't harm anybody through good luck, it would be irrational for them to feel guilt and shame, right? It would certainly be irrational for a truck driver who went down the road 10 minutes before and had the good luck not to hit a child to feel guilt and shame because it could have been him, right? It matters that it was this specific person who had the child jump out in front of him and who killed him, right? Or, this happens in the military, pilots or people manning artillery who drop bombs or shoot a shell or, missile control or drones or whatever. They do something on orders and having been told that the area is safe, and after they do it, they find out that what they have done has killed civilians, right? In a very real sense, most of us would not say that this is the person's fault, right? If they receive a legitimate order, and if the people higher up the chain tell them, yes, this is safe, we've done the investigation, and it's not, we don't think it's the person's fault. But feeling guilty about this, or even shame, makes sense. It's not pathological or neurotic, right? Sometimes people will try to say it is, but, think about, and this is in the Gregory article, and, I do think if you're interested in this topic, it's a very interesting read. William Nash, the head of the Marine Corps' psychological health division, the director, I forget the exact title, but, he says, no, that's just wrong, right? If you've had the experience, if you know people have had the experience, this is not pathological. If even through no fault of your own, your actions have resulted in the death of an innocent person, guilt and shame do seem appropriate, right? Final example, think of a nurse who's told to give a patient a medicine, and through no fault of his own, the medicine is tainted, or it's the wrong medicine, right? He has no way of knowing, but he gives the wrong medicine and kills the patient, right? If it's not the nurse's fault, we wouldn't hold this person responsible. But, we wouldn't hold them responsible in the sense of punishing them, sending them to jail, taking their nurse's license, or something like that. But we also wouldn't think it inappropriate if they felt guilty for being the cause of this person's death in a way, right? They didn't mix the medicine up, but they are the person who gave the shot or gave the dose, right? So anyway, think of these cases of moral luck. In the first set of cases, both different people have done something morally wrong, but we think there's a big difference, right? There's a big difference between the drunk driver who gets home safely and the one who kills someone, right? We would think it's different how we would feel about the actions, how we should feel about the actions, how these two people should feel about what they've done as well, and also how the law should treat them, right? The one who's killed someone should face much stiffer legal penalties than the one who got lucky and didn't. If someone carelessly fires a gun and it kills somebody, we would think that's far different than somebody who does it and breaks a window, and that the law should treat them differently, right? Damaging property is far different than killing somebody, and the guy who fires it and it doesn't do any damage, he might not be up for any legal penalty at all, right? Or a fairly minor one. And we think it's appropriate, both in how the law treats these cases, how we as people would treat the people who've done it, and even in how they themselves should regard their actions, right? But in all these cases, what the people have actually done is the same. They carelessly fire a gun. They leave the stove on. They get drunk and drive home. It's just in one case, something outside of their control happens. They have the bad luck that people are hurt or killed. In the other case, the person has good luck and there's no harm done. So, we're holding people responsible here for things that are outside their control. And we think that that is appropriate, not just in how we react, but in how the law treats them. And now the second set of cases, the pilot, the nurse, the truck driver, I think these are a little murkier. Some students will say, well, these people shouldn't even feel guilty, whatever. And certainly the law wouldn't treat these people as though they've done anything wrong, right? But still, I think a lot of us, and I put myself in this group, would think that there's a level of shame or guilt that's appropriate for these people to feel, and that that's not neurotic or pathological. And if that's the case, this further challenges the control principle, because we're saying, well, someone should feel guilty for something that's outside of their control. All of these cases, we do hold the person responsible for things outside their control, or even think it appropriate they hold themselves responsible. Well, all of these challenge the control condition. It gives us this sort of argument against the control condition. If the control condition is true, we should think it appropriate to treat cases where factors in person's control are identical, the same. We actually think it's appropriate to treat cases differently based on factors that are outside the person's control. So the control condition is not true. This works with the first set of cases, but we can even imagine people don't react as strongly to the second set of cases, so I'm not going to push them too much. But we can even use those to make a similar argument against the control condition, right? If the control condition's true, we should never feel guilty or ashamed for things outside of our control. It's never appropriate to. If you do think that these people who cause deaths through no fault of their own should nonetheless, that it's appropriate for them to feel guilt or shame, then that means that we don't buy the control principle here either. So all of these cases give us reason to support premise 2, and if we accept premise 2, then it looks like we have to reject the control condition.